Hi, this is Carl Opson at the University of Arizona, and this is SERP 590, Single Case Research Design. And today we are going to look at how to create a simple A-B single case graph. And we'll do that by using some data that you'll see on this chart in front of you in Excel and walking through this graphing checklist. I'm going to make this file available for you so you'll be able to walk through and follow along with me. So while you're watching this video, you should have this Excel file open, right? Let's talk about why this is important. One reason is that you need to be able to create your own graphs for doing single case research. It'll also help you understand how researchers are making these graphs and to help you interpret their graphs and offer some criticisms of the way they've represented their data. But another really important thing is to be able to represent your data to clients and parents and other professionals and supervisors. We're going to learn how to do all that with a really simple A-B design graph to start out. After that, the sky's the limit. You'll figure out how to do all kinds of interesting things with graphing once you get the hang of it. Let me clear the space here and let's take a quick look at the way the data is set up in this Excel file. This is data collected for a student called Amy. There is an A condition or baseline and a B condition intervention. Each one of them lasts for 5 sessions. You can see we have a column for sessions here, and we have a column for the dependent variable of target behavior, and we have a column for the dependent variable of the replacement behavior, and then we have a column for treatment integrity, or a measure of the degree to which the intervention was implemented as intended. The very first thing we've got to do to actually create a graph is highlight this data over here and start a line with markers graph. So I'm going to highlight just the data. Don't highlight the headers or the titles or the session numbers. Just get your data, because that's what Excel is going to use to make your chart. Next thing you want to do is go to Insert in the menu, and you'll walk across here and you'll see that there are charts available. If you choose recommended charts, it's going to pop out a big set for you to look at. You see this one with the little lines and markers? You could get there by choosing this, and you go to line with markers. Another way to get there is to go through recommended charts, all charts, line charts, line with markers. Make sure you don't pick stacked line with markers, 100% line with markers. We want a line with markers. That's the way that single case research graphs are represented. So we're going to choose that one, and we're going to say, okay, do it. The next thing I want you to recognize is that it's really small and we need to resize it. Make sure you click on the outside here, okay, to resize it. If you click in the middle and try to resize it, it'll be a mess, and I'll show you why in just a moment. Just click on the outside, grab that outside edge, and resize it big enough that you can work on it. I'm going to make mine nice and big here. Be easy for me to see, easy for you to see. There we go. So here's our graph. The next thing we've got to do to move on in this process is to format the chart area with plot and plot area. So here's the thing. Here is the chart area this outside area is the chart area. Let me click off of it for a second. I click on it. If you click in toward the middle, see where it says plot area? That's the plot area. It's the part that contains the dots and lines. The outer edge is the chart area, and it is the part that contains the text and any legends, axis labels that we'll put in here. Just know that you're dealing with two different things, and we want to make sure that we understand there is a chart level and a plot level. Right? We're going to start with the chart level. We don't want this border going around here, because if we copy it out and put it someplace else, it's going to look a little funky. So first thing I do is get rid of the border. Double click on your chart area. There we go. And this box should open up to the side. There are probably other ways to get at it, but if you can get this box open, it is one of the easiest ways to work with it. So the first thing you want to do is get rid of the border. See how it has these chart options? If I were to come over here and click in the middle, it would turn into plot options, right? But we don't want to do that yet. We want to work with the chart area options. So we're going to go to border, open that and say no border. If we come back here, we'll see how the border's been removed? No border. Next thing we're going to do is format the plot area. So let's keep this open, but let's click on the plot area. And one thing we're going to do is just come down here ourselves and delete this legend. So click on the legend and hit your backspace button. One thing that does is gives you more space for your graph, but also single case graphs generally don't have a legend in them. If you really want it, you could keep it. But to create a single case graph that's more suitable for publication, we would want to get rid of that. Next thing we want to do is delete the vertical axis grid lines. See these guys going across here? That doesn't fly in single case design work either. So we're going to just click on those. You see how it created all these little dots? They all get selected at one time. If you looks like that, you can hit your backspace button and they will disappear. See how we've got a nice clear space to work with now? The next thing that we've got to work on is formatting the vertical axis. And the way we're going to do that is by double clicking. Whoops. There we go. Grab one of those numbers, click on it until it highlights like this, okay? And over here on the side, it will allow you to format your axis. So what we need to do a few things to this axis. If you come all the way over to where it says axis options, that's what we want right there. We want to set the max, the min, and the major units. Okay, so this is going to be a little funky, I know, but follow along with me. You want to set this to -10, and you'll understand why in just a few minutes. And then the max on this, it's a percentage, and we want it to be 100%. But then you do that, and you see how it doesn't show all the numbers that you want. So we're going to set the major units to 10, and that will give us what we generally see as 10, 20, 30, 40. So let me go back to that. All right, so I'm back here to my axis option. So I have set the max, min, and major bounds. Why did I set this at -10? That's because we're going to move this horizontal axis down. All of these zeros on the baseline, once you get your graphs set up with dark lines, they're going to blend in and you won't be able to tell if there's a line connecting them. It'll be hard to see the dots. We want to move that axis away so that the line can float freely at 0. And the way you do that is you come over here and say horizontal axis crosses, right? Oops. At axis value. So pick that center one. We want it to cross at -5, halfway to where we set the bottom. So look what happened. This horizontal axis just hopped down and it let our 0 line kind of float free above the horizontal axis with its markers. Right? Let's do this really important part of finishing up the vertical axis. So the vertical axis, we next want to add tick marks. So that's another thing you can do over here in the axis options. Come down to where it says tick marks. You want to set major tick marks outside. Boom, you see those little tick marks showed up? All right. Another thing that you want to do is to make sure that your axis line is the right color. Often there's no color to it at all, or it shows up in a gray color in Excel. Instead, we want the line color to be a nice dark black color that we can see. And then the final thing we'll do to the vertical axis is make sure that the numbers are black. And so to do that, come over to make sure that this category is highlighted, or that your vertical axis is highlighted. Go to the home. Just get the regular font color tool and make sure it's selected as a black color. All right. We're going to go on and do the horizontal axis next. And there's not as much to do on this one, but we want to do some of the same things. So let's come down here and click on it, see how it's now highlighted. And up in this area, you can work on that axis. And we're going to start by going over to the axis options again and fixing up those tick marks. So we want, this time we want minor tick marks, and that is because if we choose major tick marks, it's going to put marks between the numbers. If we choose minor tick marks on the outside, it's going to put them right with the numbers, right? The next thing we want to do with the horizontal axis is make sure that we come over and we set the line. See how mine automatically sets it to gray? I don't want that. I want to be able to see it well. We want a black line, and we want to make sure that those numbers are also black. So we highlight, oops, let me make sure I got it. There you go. See, I've got the little blue dots around the axis. So I know that then if I come up here and check the color, I can make sure that it is a nice black color, right? We are halfway through and it's starting to shape up. The next thing we're going to want to do is to format the data series. We've not been looking at any graphs where things are different colors. And we also, there's a break in here where the intervention happens. Right after the 5th session, they go to intervention. And that is where we put our changing condition line. But there's no place to put it now. We're gonna have to create the line. We got to create the break. We want to get all the colors fixed. Let me show you how to do all of that. Let us start with this data. So if you select one data point, okay, you can see it's highlighted which data we're working on. We're working on the target behavior data. And this formatting section over here lets us format the data series. So what are some things we want to do? We want to fix the marker. Okay, sometimes it's going to be a weird shaped marker. Choose built-in marker, and then from there you could pick whatever size or shape you want. We're going to stay with a circle. We also don't want it to be filled with blue. So the markers in Excel, they have a fill and a border. So you could see if I change the fill to black, the border, if you look really close, is still blue. We don't want that. We want to change the marker border. You get that back. There you go. So we want to get our line back, and we want to change our marker border to black also. Right, so this is going to be just a black dot. Then we want to change the line color and weight. So we want it as a black line, and I'm going to tone it down some. I'm going to take it down, the width of it down to 1 point. You don't have to do that. I just think it kind of makes it easier to look at and distinguish the dots from the data line. So we've done all of that so far, and now we need to put the break in where we are going to draw our line, our trend line. So here's what you do to get your break in. Go to the data point after the place where the break should be. So our intervention happens after the 5th session. It starts in the 6th session. So we're going to come to the 6th session, and we'll click once and see how it highlights everything, and click again. And now just after a second click, just that dot is selected. Then if you come up here and you say no line, see what it does? It removes the line between the 5th and 6th. Okay, so that data line, that set of data is all fixed up. Now let's do this set down here. We're going to do the same things all over again. First, we are going to take a look at the marker, and we're going to say we want a built-in marker. We're going to keep the round and the size, although if you want to change that a little bit, you can. This time, though, we want to create an open dot, and the way you do that is you select white fill, a white center, and a border that is black. See what we've created? Pretty slick. So to create that, you select a go to marker, and you select a white fill and a black border around your circle. Okay. And again, with the, I'm going to come back to the line. We're done with the marker, and I am going to make sure that that line is black in color, and I'm going to reduce the width because that's what I've decided to do on mine. Then the last thing I'm going to do on mine is, again, come to that 6th data point, click it once, highlights everything, click it again. I have just the 6th data point, and I say no line, and there it is. You can see one of the things I forgot to do before moving on and making the trend line breaks, we have one more data series. We've got to fix up this treatment integrity data series. So let's do that now. I'm going to click on that. Now, treatment integrity generally is represented as a different kind of a marker. It's usually a triangular marker. So we're going to choose built-in marker option. And I think I'll make them a little bigger so they're easier to see. Let's make them 7 point And I think I'm also going to give them a white interior and a black border so that I can see them really easy, so they stand out really easily on a white piece of paper. Let's see how those look. That's great. And treatment integrity, usually there are no lines running between treatment integrity. All right, now the last thing we got to do for our series here is to format the titles. So there are a few things that we've got to do just to make this understandable for readers. Okay, right now it's a pretty good looking plot, but we need to label some things. So I've already added a chart title here, Amy's target and replacement behavior. The next thing I am going to add is a vertical and horizontal axis title. So I'm going to add some kind of title over here so that we know what metric we're working with, and I'm going to add a title down here so we know that we're working with sessions. Sometimes it would be days, sometimes it's sessions. In either case, we need to let people know what it is. So probably the simplest way to do that is to click on the chart area, click on this little plus mark here for chart elements, and say in the checkbox, yes, I want axis titles. So then we come over here and we can highlight this one, and we're going to say it is percent intervals. You could create all these things on your own, pop them in here. This is a more simplified way to do it. And in our x-axis, our horizontal axis, it is sessions, right? The next thing we're going to do is add our condition line. This is a little funky. I want you to click on the plot area, right, so that our line lays down in the proper place. Then you go to Insert and Shape and grab yourself a line to put in. Now I'll tell you, you can just try to draw the line freehand up here, okay? And get it as straight as you can. Invariably, I end up a little to one side or the other. There are different ways to straighten it up and make sure that it is straight. Here's a power user way that I like. I'm going to get rid of this one. Make sure my plot area is selected. I'm going to show you another way to do it. So select your plot area, choose Insert, choose Shape, and get your line. I'll give you a second to get all that ready. Okay? Then I want you to go to your keyboard and hold down in the left corner of your keyboard, the lower left corner, 3 keys at once. The Option key, the Control key, and the Shift key. Watch what that does when I draw this line. I can go all over the place, and it takes a lot for me to drag it out of the way. It's going to constrain this to a straight line. It's going to force me to draw a straight line pretty much, right? So remember, that is the lower left corner of your keyboard. If you hold down the Option, Control, and Shift key when you draw your line, it's going to draw a nice straight line for you. We need to make this line the right color, so we're going to make that line black. I think it's a little too thick. I'm going to make it thinner. I'm going to take it down to a 1-point line. The other thing, they automatically come in with a shadow. You leave it if you want. I don't like it. I wouldn't ever send it in if I were doing something for replication. So if you click this area here for effects, choose shadow, click on presets, you'll find one that says no shadow. That will get rid of the shadow for your line. Okay? The next thing to do after drawing the condition line is to put the condition titles. We have a baseline and an intervention, right? One thing that is a problem is there's not much room up here to write. So if you want to, you can Now grab the corner of this plot and make it a little smaller. Okay, that will leave you space to write in baseline and intervention. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to go up to Insert, Shapes, Text Box, right? This little square with a letter in it that is the symbol for a text box. You want a text box. You're going to come over here to the plot area or the chart area, and you're going to write in baseline, or you can put an A if you want. Then you're going to go and do the same thing on the other side for intervention. We're going to go to Insert, Shape, Text Box, click, and say Intervention. And we're going to try to get up to the same space. There is another way to do this too. So there's another power user way to make sure that this thing is exactly even. If you come over to your baseline and you highlight it like that, okay? Click on the outside of it. Then use those three keys again that I showed you before, those three magic keys, the Option, Control, and Shift key all at the same time. And it's going to drag a copy in a straight line so that it is perfectly even, right? It's perfectly on line with the other one. And then we're going to call it Intervention. And I'm going to sleepy face. The last thing, oh, we got a couple more things actually. So we've got to draw data labels and arrows. All right, so we need to put some lines on these since we don't have a legend, and we generally don't use legends in single case research design. You draw an arrow to each kind of data point and you tell people what it is. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to click on the plot area, go to Insert again and Shapes, and we're going to get an arrow. And then we're going to draw an arrow to one of these data points, wherever you can fit it, right? And we're going to change that to, let's see, we'll come make that a black arrow, and we're going to also make it 1 point in width. Nice looking arrow. You can see that it has that shadow to it. I'm going to get rid of the shadow, so I'm going to click on Effects under Format Shape, Presets, no shadow. I could do the same thing all over again because I want to draw an arrow to this data here, right, to the replacement behavior. But I could also use my power user move that I used just a moment ago with the text box. So highlight that arrow, hold down the three magic keys, Option, Control, and Shift, and you'll see that little plus sign. That means it's going to create another arrow exactly like the one you've got, and you can drag it straight down to the other marker. Now we need to add some text boxes that tell us what those arrows point at. So we're going to Insert, Shape, Text Box. We're going to click right around here and we're going to say this is the target behavior. And move it up a little bit. Now you could do that again. You could go to Insert and Shape and Text Box and create another one down here. Or you could do our power user move where you click on the outside of that text box, hold down the three magic keys, Option, Control, Shift, and pull straight down here, highlight that, and this is our replacement behavior. Whoops. So the very last thing we're going to do is just a little cleaning up down here in this corner. We don't want this -10 showing. You probably really don't care if you're using this with parents or just to track data on your own for clients. But if you're going to submit this publication, you'd need to get rid of this -10. So what we're going to do is just cover it up and hide it, frankly. So I want you to click on the plot area and then go to Insert. And we're going to cover it up with a shape with a rectangle. Okay? So come down here and draw a rectangle and just cover it up. The next thing you want to do is to format this so that you can't see it. Okay? So we want to format that shape. We want to make it a solid fill. It's not a gradient fill. See how it's kind of from a light blue to dark blue? Say we want it just a solid color. We want the fill to be white. We want the color of the border to be white. And then we need to get rid of that shadow because then it gives away our box location. So then we're going to change the shadow under effects. We're going to change that to no shadow. And it's hidden. This is a pretty good A/B design graph. One that would be suitable for publication, one that's really clear, one that stands out really nicely on a white piece of paper, one that's the titles are all there, everything is labeled so that people can tell what it is, right? And it tells a really clear story, right? That the target behavior was running at a high level, stable. The replacement behavior was running at 0. Once we started our intervention, the replacement behavior took off and the target behavior went down to 0. Just what we want to see. You may need to work on this several times. I would suggest the very next thing you do after you get to this point is to save it. Save this chart, okay? Make sure you save your work. And in another video, I'm going to show you how you can not only save this, but once you've saved it, I'm going to show you how you can reuse it so that you don't ever have to start from scratch again, right? Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you guys online.